Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Welcome. So excited to have this broadcast tonight with Richelle. Hi, Richelle.
Hi.
Where are you joining us from?
I'm in Cranston, Rhode Island. I just moved in, so I've been here just about a week.
Oh, wow. And how's the weather in Rhode Island?
Hot. It is hot. It is humid, but I have central air now, so it's much better.
Oh, good. That sounds good. Well, folks, as you join us, please type in where you're tuning in from. It's really fun to see, especially for Richelle afterwards, to go back and see where folks joined us from. And really excited for you guys to hear Richelle's story tonight. Before she gets started, I just will go over a few housekeeping and Project Sleep updates. So as far as Project Sleep, things are busy and awesome. We have an event coming up in Nashville next Saturday. So please, if you haven't registered yet, please do. We still have some seats available for people. It's going to be a wonderful one-day event with some of our Rising Voices speakers, along with a few clinicians speaking, and a workshop about how to, be an empowered advocate. So really excited about that. We'll get the sticky notes going and the Sharpies and all the creativity. So please join us in Nashville if you can. And then just wanted to mention our new podcast. So we have been turning the Narcolepsy Nerd Alert broadcast into podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. And thank you for everyone who's already subscribed and reviewed. It's been really amazing to see like that we already have followers and subscribers and ratings. So thank you for that. And then quickly just want to mention we'll have a Narcolepsy Nerd Alert at the end of the month on narcolepsy in the workplace, accommodations and all that. So please tune in for that on August 31st. And lastly, we are, a month and a half away from World Narcolepsy Day on September 22nd. So please, please, please save the date and look for more from us and the different organizations in the future. We'll be putting out, more ways to get involved in the next couple weeks. And then before Richelle gets started, just a reminder to please, as Richelle is sharing her story, if anything is resonating with you, please, please, please share in the comments. Please share this video on your Facebook page. That lets Facebook know that it's great content and it'll reach more people with all the awareness we want to raise. But remember, of course, that any comments you make on the Facebook will stay with the video. So, and that'll be public. So just don't want to share anything there that you wouldn't want to share publicly. And then last, of course, we do these for educational and awareness purposes, but we are not doctors. So if anything about Richelle's story, gives you questions about your own medical situation, please bring that to your sleep specialist. But of course, if you do have questions for Richelle about her story, we will be excited to take your questions at the end of the broadcast. So I think with that, Richelle, if you want to go ahead and pull up your slides, I will introduce you.
Sounds good.
Okay. Richelle Topping works in the film industry as a freelance camera assistant and as a member of the International Cinematographers Guild. After 18 years of struggling with sleepiness, Richelle received a narcolepsy type 1 diagnosis at age 31. She is a sleep health advocate and speaker with Project Sleep's Rising Voices program. In this presentation, Richelle shares her personal journey with narcolepsy, a story about trusting your instincts, turning adversity into opportunity, and discovering how to lift your voice up to help others. It is a huge, huge honor to introduce Richelle to you guys tonight. So go ahead and take it away.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm really excited for this opportunity to share my story. So let's get started. I am an only child and I grew up living with my mom in southeastern Connecticut. I was really lucky to live surrounded by forest, so I spent a lot of my time out exploring the woods, climbing trees, climbing rocks, finding streams. If I wasn't outside, I was inside watching Nickelodeon. I'm a Nicktoons kid. I love 90s Nickelodeon, my all-time favorite being Invader Zim. And if I wasn't watching Nickelodeon, I was probably reading. You'll see here a selection of photos of me as a child with my iconic blonde bangs, which it just dawns on me I'm starting to bring back, and we'll see how that goes. I was a rarity in that I loved school. I loved reading, and I was really self-motivated to get good grades. That continued into high school, where I took honors classes. I continued working hard, and I tried to take as many classes as I possibly could. My school had really interesting electives, and I knew even in my freshman year of high school that I wanted to take them then while they were free, because I knew once I graduated, I'd have to pay for my classes. So because I wanted to get as many of those classes in as possible, I felt that a study hall was a failure. So in 10th grade, I had my first study hall, and I remember thinking that it was just a huge waste of my time, because that was a period that I should be taking one of the classes I really liked. I was 15 years old in this study hall, and it was near the beginning of the year. I decided I'd use my time to at least read, but it was still really warm. It was, being at the beginning of the year, it was really hot out still. The teacher had the blinds drawn, so there wasn't really any air movement. The lights were off, so it was dark, it was hot, it was stuffy. And I put my head down on the desk while I was reading. And then all of a sudden the bell rang, and I was just so confused because I had only just started reading. I didn't understand how suddenly the period was over. I was groggy, and I just didn't understand where this missing time had gone. I started to find that I could fall asleep in these study halls in minutes, sometimes having full dreams, or more embarrassingly, drooling on my desk. The following year, in 11th grade, when I was 16 years old, I was in math class. I sat at the very front center of the class, right in front of the whiteboard. And this particular day, I was really struggling to stay awake. I was embarrassed, and I felt guilty because I didn't want the teacher to think that I didn't care. I really wanted to stay awake, and I wanted to pay attention. So I started pinching my leg, hoping that the pain would help wake me up. And it worked for a little bit, but then it stopped working. So I started biting my tongue, which again worked for a little bit and then stopped working. So I finally ended up poking myself in the hand with a safety pin to try to stay awake. When that bell finally rang, I was so relieved to stand up and try to shake the sleepiness off and to get out of that room as fast as possible, hoping that the teacher hadn't noticed that I'd been falling asleep. This continued happening in more classes, and I just thought it was my fault. I thought I wasn't getting enough sleep at night. Maybe I was spreading myself too thin, taking on too much work. And I became obsessed with sleep hygiene to try to get the best night's sleep that I could. I remember my best friend calling me a grandma at the age of 16 because I would drink a cup of chamomile tea before going to bed at 8 p.m. Later that year, when I was still 16, I experienced something really strange. I got home from school one afternoon, and I laid down on the couch and I dozed off. And when I woke up, it wasn't that much longer. The sun was still coming in through the windows, and I laid there for a few moments, just taking in my surroundings, listening to the hum of the fan on my computer in the other room. The compressor on the fridge kicked in, and the two sounds started to combine together to make this really eerie humming noise. It just felt wrong. And then it started to move through the kitchen. I heard it leave the kitchen, start coming down the hall towards me, and I was terrified. I tried to turn to look at the doorway so that I could see what was about to come in the room, and I was just paralyzed with fear. I heard the sound turn the corner and come through the doorway into the living room, and then it paused just at the edge of my vision, and then whoop, it just blipped out of existence. It felt so real and viscerally terrifying that the only explanation that I could come up with was that when my cousin and I had been playing with the Ouija board a few days earlier, we must have unleashed a demon and now it was haunting me. Here's a selection of photos from high school. The one on the left is at my National Honor Society graduation. In the middle, you'll see the couch that I was napping on when that terrifying sound came towards me. And then the final video is my prom, or the final photo is my prom photo. I went to college in Rhode Island. I went to New England Institute of Technology for video and radio production. It was a technical hands-on program, which meant we weren't spending much time sitting in a classroom. We were up and about in the studio using equipment, working on projects. So even though I was still experiencing sleepiness, it didn't feel as bad. And when I did experience it, I just assumed that it was the rigors of balancing school, work, and commuting to Rhode Island from Connecticut. After graduation in my early 20s, I came across this article that was written by the late night host Jimmy Kimmel, describing his life living with narcolepsy. It seemed like a fascinating article. I didn't know that he had narcolepsy. And as I was reading it, I was really surprised to find that it felt like he was describing my life. Everything he talked about felt like something that I had experienced. He described that it felt like his head was stuffed with cotton and it took all of his concentration to focus on staying awake. He couldn't even pay attention to what people were saying around him because all of his energy was just on staying awake. I was really excited to tell my friends about this because it was so exciting to find this thing that explained how I felt, that I really connected with. But my friends, they really doubted me. They were like, you know, narcolepsy is a really serious thing. I don't think that that's what you have. You don't fall asleep doing things. And eventually the doubt started to settle in, and I just pushed it to the back of my mind. A few years later, in my late 20s, I was living with a roommate. The two photos on the outside are taken by that roommate. He thought it was hysterical that I fell asleep all the time. Pretty much at that point, anytime I was sitting down to watch TV or read a book. So he had this Snapchat series that he called Down Goes Topping. And we got past 100. The photos here, the one on the left is around 101, and the one on the right is around 106. So he had over 100 photos of me falling asleep. I came home one day and he was sitting on the couch and he made a joke as I came in that just hit me that right kind of funny. And I felt my knees go weak and my face went slack. And this wasn't an abnormal thing. It happened occasionally. So as I always did, I instinctively tried to hide it. I pretended that I was doubled over in laughter. But for some reason this time, I thought, wait, I don't think this is normal. I don't think that everyone else experiences this. This actually seems really weird. So later that day, I looked it up. I searched muscle weakness while laughing. And I was really surprised to find that this was a real thing with a medical term called cataplexy. And I was shocked to find as I scrolled down the page that it actually can be a symptom of narcolepsy. Narcolepsy, that thing that I had suspected and pushed aside, now here was a real symptom that I couldn't just explain away. So I finally decided that it was time to go see a doctor. and my doctor promptly sent me to a sleep specialist. The sleep specialist listened to me explain my experiences, and she decided that she was going to have me do a sleep study. After several times rescheduling it, I finally had my sleep study in February of 2020. I remember standing in the hallway waiting to go in, clutching my pillow and my cooler full of snacks, and seeing all of the staff and the nurses wearing face masks and talking to the nurse about her travel plans and how she didn't think that she was actually going to be able to go. The middle photo here is a photo that I took during my sleep study with all the wires glued to my head there. So because it was the pandemic, when it was time to discuss the results, I had to have a video call with my sleep specialist because I couldn't go into the office. And I recall sitting on my bed in the corner up against the wall, curled up, holding my phone in front of me. And she told me that the results were clear. I had narcolepsy. And then she asked, "Why are you smiling?" I just felt so relieved and validated that I had been right all along. My suspicions were correct. I had started experiencing symptoms at the age of 15, and now I was 33 years old. After 18 years of symptoms and about 10 years after first reading Jimmy Kimmel's article, I finally had a diagnosis. And a diagnosis meant that I now had a path to treatment and access to medications. And I thought medications were going to be this quick fix, that once I was medicated, I would no longer have to experience the symptoms and I could go back to a normal life. But that wasn't really my experience. I came to learn that narcolepsy is a chronic neurological disorder that impairs the brain's ability to regulate the sleep-wake cycle. It affects 1 in 2,000 people, 200,000 Americans, and 3 million people worldwide. Symptoms vary by person and may include excessive daytime sleepiness, which is characterized by periods of extreme sleepiness during the day that feel comparable to how someone without narcolepsy would feel after staying awake for 48 to 72 hours. So as I was trying to stay awake in math class and poking myself with a safety pin, I was experiencing excessive daytime sleepiness. Cataplexy, which is striking, sudden episodes of muscle weakness, usually triggered by strong emotions such as laughter, exhilaration, surprise, or anger. The severity may vary from a slackening of the jaw or buckling of the knees to falling down. The duration may be a few seconds to several minutes, and the person remains fully conscious, even if unable to speak during the episode. So when my roommate made that funny joke, the muscle weakness that I experienced was cataplexy. Hypnagogic and hypnopompic hallucinations, which are visual, auditory, or tactile hallucinations upon falling asleep or waking up. These can be frightening and confusing. Sleep paralysis, which is the inability to move for a few seconds or minutes upon falling asleep or waking up. It is often accompanied by hypnagogic or hypnopompic hallucinations. It's important to know that people without narcolepsy can experience these hallucinations and sleep paralysis. In fact, about 1/3 of all people experience these at some point in their lives, usually during periods of high stress or poor sleep. For people with narcolepsy, these are much more frequent and consistent over time. So it turns out that when I fell asleep on the couch in high school, I wasn't actually being haunted. I was experiencing sleep paralysis and hallucinations. Disrupted nighttime sleep. Unlike public perceptions, people with narcolepsy do not sleep all the time. Timing of sleepiness is off with narcolepsy, so one may fight sleepiness during the day, but struggle to sleep at night. I didn't notice disrupted nighttime sleep as a regular occurrence until my late 20s, but now it's very rare for me to go a night without waking up a minimum of 3 to 4 times. There are 2 forms of narcolepsy with cataplexy and narcolepsy without cataplexy. Recent research suggests that narcolepsy with cataplexy is caused by a lack of hypocretin, a key neurotransmitter that helps sustain alertness and regulate the sleep-wake cycle. Less is known about narcolepsy without cataplexy. My diagnosis is narcolepsy with cataplexy, which is also known as type 1 narcolepsy. Diagnosis typically includes a 24-hour sleep study that includes a nighttime portion, polysomnography, and a daytime nap portion, multiple sleep latency test, to record one's brainwaves. The diagnosis is mainly based on how quickly and frequently one goes into rapid eye movement or REM sleep, also known as the dream sleep stage, during these tests. There is currently no cure for narcolepsy. Treatment for symptom management varies widely by person, but may include wake-promoting, histamine-directed, or stimulant medications to increase alertness in the daytime, nighttime medications to increase wakefulness and reduce cataplexy, antidepressant medication to decrease occurrence of cataplexy, and scheduled daytime naps. Coping strategies vary widely by person, but may include social support, such as meetup groups or social media, and improvement in general health and wellness through sleep hygiene, diet, and fitness. The treatments that I've been currently finding most useful have been the wake promoting and stimulant medications, nighttime medications, and coping strategies like meditation and sleep hygiene. The first few months after my diagnosis were really difficult. I was experiencing the loneliness of social isolation because of the pandemic, as well as the loneliness of being diagnosed with a chronic illness. And I was trying to understand whether I was sleepy because my medications weren't working, or maybe I wasn't getting the level of activity that I was used to prior to the pandemic, or if it was just the stress of the pandemic. I work as a freelance camera assistant, which is a gig economy job, and our industry had completely shut down during the pandemic. So I was also dealing with unemployment. The pandemic was bringing out a roller coaster of emotions that really felt unprecedented. It felt like I was in high school again. The mood swings that I was going through were like being a teenager. I was experiencing high anxiety. I had my first panic attack. I was suffering with bouts of depression, and I was even experiencing fits of anger. The people close to me were really supportive, but I felt like I just couldn't explain what I was going through. And it didn't help that I felt like I needed to downplay my experiences. I needed to explain that my case was mild, that it wasn't as bad as some other people experienced. I didn't fall asleep in the middle of activities. I didn't have to take a nap every day. And I wanted to make sure that people knew that my case wasn't that bad, because I was worried that I would be misrepresenting the disease if I didn't make that clear. After about 3 months, I came across a video online of someone discussing their experiences with narcolepsy. And it had a really profound impact on me and encouraged me to look up other videos as well. And connecting with these videos made me feel less alone. They helped me to make sense of my experiences and to see some of the ways that my narcolepsy was affecting my life that were less obvious. For instance, I learned many of the mood swings that I'd been experiencing were actually common side effects of my medications. And these videos helped me get past this idea that my narcolepsy wasn't real enough. I started to understand that everyone experiences narcolepsy differently, and all of those experiences are valid. I was really touched by how powerful it was to hear these firsthand accounts. And I was reminded that it was a firsthand account by Jimmy Kimmel all those years ago that had pointed me in the right direction. As I learned the importance of sharing my story, I decided that I wanted to do the same. However, I was worried that it would affect my work. Because I'm freelance, I'm hired on a job-by-job basis, jobs can be as short as a couple days to 6 or 7 months. So I needed to make sure that the people that were hiring me knew that they could. I've collected here a few photos from several of those many jobs that I've been on. On the left, I have myself pulling focus in style on a dinosaur. The photo in the middle is from season 1 of AMC's Nosferatu. And the photo on the right, I couldn't help but take a photo of. We stage our camera carts in the sleep medicine center on this TV show. And I just thought it was too perfect to, have a photo of my camera with the sleep medicine center sign. So because I'm freelance, I was really afraid that people just wouldn't understand narcolepsy and wouldn't think that I'd be able to handle the hours and the difficult schedule, and that they would choose to hire someone else. And now that the film industry was starting to figure out how to safely navigate the pandemic and get back to work, I really had to start grappling with whether I wanted to talk about my diagnosis. And to be honest, I wasn't sure anymore whether I'd be able to handle the long hours and the difficult schedule. Despite the fact that I had had narcolepsy through the entirety of my career, I really had started to lose faith in myself. At the beginning of 2021, I learned about the Sleep In fundraiser for Project Sleep. And I decided that I wanted to participate and that I wanted to use this as my opportunity to open up publicly about my narcolepsy. And as the donations started to come in, I was really amazed to see that it wasn't just donations from my close friends and family, but I was getting donations from acquaintances and colleagues. And I felt really supported. I saw that not only did my colleagues understand that I was still going to be able to do my job well, but they wanted to support me and support this cause. During the fundraiser, I did a day on a TV show, and a colleague approached me, and he told me that he appreciated that I was speaking out about the importance of sleep health. He shared some of his own struggles with sleep, and then he thanked me for what I was doing. And in the end, I was one of the top fundraisers. I have a collection of photos from that first fundraiser, various social media posts that I had shared. I love finding a good shirt with a slogan for this. The hoodie, the sweatshirt in the middle says, "Kind of want to go for a run, kind of want to stay in bed." My best friend has a matching sweatshirt that says the same thing. And then the night shirt on the right says, "Dear bed, I love you," which is very true. I love my bed. In the future, I'm looking forward to working on even bigger and better projects and working on advocating to improve work conditions in the film industry. The film industry really has a problem with sleep. We work really long hours. A minimum day is typically 12 hours, but you're more likely to see 14, 16, even 18-hour days. And these are long stretches of time, often not going to lunch at all or going to lunch 8 hours into the day. And in 2021, we had bargaining negotiations for our new contract. This is the union that represents film workers. And this really started to bring the discussion of these working conditions into the public eye. There was a lot of social media awareness, there was a lot of news coverage, and we made some progress. We reached a new contract in October. With some progress, we get some larger penalties if we're not given a lunch break on time. We have slightly longer guaranteed lengths of weekends, but we still have a really long way to go. And I'm looking forward to using what I've learned to try to help the cause. For instance, on the right, I have my I Love Naps patch, which I love putting on the camera or putting on the slate to just kind of remind everyone of how important sleep is. And the photo on the left is myself on the top shelf of our camera cart trying to take a nap during my lunch break. The logo in the middle is one of the various graphics that we were using during the awareness campaign for last year's contract negotiations. I'm also looking forward to traveling more. I love traveling, and I'm a very adventurous traveler. I try to fit in as much as I possibly can when I'm traveling. I'm very go, go, go. And I'm looking forward to now trying to figure out how to balance that with giving myself rest. And in May, I went on my first trip since my diagnosis. These pictures are from that trip. I went to Switzerland and the French Alps. And I was really worried about this trip and how I was going to balance giving myself rest and how to not feel like I was missing out on things that I needed to get out. And I feel like I did a great job. I took a nap every single day, and I found that I didn't feel like I was missing out on things. I actually felt like my evenings, I felt better and more rested and better able to enjoy the rest of my day. On the left, I visited CERN, the particle collider, and I'm wearing my sleep-in shirt to represent. The next photo is at the Einstein Museum. The third photo I really love because I took that to show what you don't see on Instagram. This is me climbing a mountain. You'll see the Matterhorn in the background, and I was pooped. So I thought it would be great to take this photo that really showed how I felt. And then the photo on the right is just before jumping off that mountain to paraglide in the French Alps. Because of low awareness, even among physicians and misperceptions, there's an average of 8 to 15 years between narcolepsy symptom onset and diagnosis. It's estimated that the majority of people with narcolepsy are currently undiagnosed or misdiagnosed. Common misdiagnoses include epilepsy, depression, and schizophrenia. I was 15 years old when I began experiencing symptoms, and I didn't receive a diagnosis until I was 33, which meant it took 18 years for me to finally get diagnosed. In 2022, I participated in the Sleep-In fundraiser for the second time, and that's the collection of photos here. And it was even more successful than the previous year, and I fully attribute that to having donuts that said Sleep-In 2022. I'm so thankful that I've had this opportunity to share my story, because I've experienced firsthand the ways in which hearing someone's personal account can really have a profound impact on one's life. It helped me to recognize the symptoms of my narcolepsy and to ultimately seek a diagnosis, as well as helping me to better understand what I was going through once I was diagnosed and to feel less lonely. And if sharing my story can help even one person in a fraction of the way that hearing other people's stories has helped me, then it's all been worthwhile. I'm sharing my story today as part of Rising Voices, a program of the nonprofit organization Project Sleep, which empowers patient advocates to share their stories and improve public understanding of narcolepsy and other sleep disorders. Thank you so much for sticking around and listening to my presentation and letting me share my story.
Yay! Great job, Richelle.
Thank you.
Oh, that was awesome. If you want to go ahead and unshare, then we can, there we are. Yay. Oh, great job. Okay, I have all the feels and, holding back the tears because that was very moving. So just thank you so much for sharing. So it's been so meaningful to have you part of this community, and all your participation in this and the sleep in. I'm going to start with a silly question, but how did one make sleep in donuts?
I have a friend who owns a donut shop, and they've maybe the past year or so started doing alphabet donuts. So it was very easy. I just ordered them.
Oh, wow. That is so cool. That's such a great idea. Alphabet donuts.
Yeah,
That
and
is
then I got to
awesome.
eat them. It was lovely.
Were they good? I'm assuming they are.
It's easily my favorite donut shop, so it was a nice treat.
That is so fun. We love the donuts. We were just all sad that we couldn't have some too with you. Folks, if you have questions for Richelle, please send them in over on the comments. I just want to say we have people from all over, multiple people in Virginia, Milwaukee, Indiana, Pennsylvania, I'm sure a few other places as well. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and put your questions in the comments. We have a question here from Jackie. Jackie says, thank you so much for your vulnerability and sharing your story. What are some concrete things those around folks with narcolepsy can do to better support them?
Oh, that's a great question. I've found one of the best things that I've experienced is just giving me time when I'm sleepy. Uh, for instance, my partner is so understanding if I need to nap. He just finds time and lets me do it, never any questioning. There's never any hard feelings. So I think anytime, if I'm around someone and feeling that, just the space to either take a nap or sit down for a few minutes and relax really means a lot.
Yeah, that's awesome advice, and much appreciated. And thank you, Jackie, for supporting a person with narcolepsy. We love our supporters. Yay. By Jackie being here and asking that question, I think we're already assuming she's actually a pretty amazing supporter. Yeah. And Alex in Australia, just shout out to our Australia friends. Nice to see you, Alex. Alex asks, what sort of accommodations do you ask for or advocate for yourself at work?
Yeah, that's a tough one because of the way our industry works. For me, it's just about putting my foot down if hours start to get really too bad, which luckily recently hasn't happened to me very often, but just being clear if there's not going to be enough time between when we're done at night and when we have to be in the morning, making it clear that I might have to come in a little late because I'm not going to wake up when my alarm goes off if it's too soon. Yeah, I try to let someone know if I'm feeling sleepy, just have someone cover me on set so that I can go take a walk, grab a seltzer, just kind of get away for a minute. Often I find I'm in very dark places, sitting down, being still. So having someone come in and cover me so that I can just get out, maybe get some sunlight and get through it.
Yeah. Somewhat along those lines, I was curious, you talked about this culture of working such long hours. Do you think that had any impact in your road to diagnosis at all? I mean, were you part of that industry? I mean, you were, right? For a while.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it made it really hard to see that there was anything different about me. Everyone in the industry has a story about falling asleep while driving, which is terrifying, but everyone's exhausted. So I just assumed that that's what I was feeling too. It was very hard to realize that I was feeling a different type of tired and that I was feeling it much more than everyone else because everyone's exhausted.
Yeah. And of course, Project Sleep is trying to work on having more consultation when narcolepsy is featured in movies. And it's really exciting to see some other nonprofits really focused on disability representation behind the camera and in front of the camera in Hollywood. And just hoping that there's more opportunities. How have you seen Have you seen, that from your perspective? Has culture shifted towards inclusion of people with disabilities behind and in front of the camera?
Yeah, I think, we're definitely seeing more inclusion, but I think one of the things we really need to work on is doing a better job of listening to outside voices about the representation. I've never worked on something where a character had a big disability like this, but I've certainly seen times where we have some sort of someone on set who's discussing with the director the way things should look, a consultant on set. And you often find that they're just there because it's the right thing to do, but they don't really get listened to. And I think that's really something that needs to change. The director's so focused on making sure that things look good on the screen that they'll often say, oh yeah, but we won't do it that way because it just isn't going to look good. It'll look better this way. And I think we really need to empower those consultants to put their foot down and to really make it clear that that's harmful.
Very well said. I just, that's how it feels to me, having tried to get a consultation on a major TV show, the Mysterious Benedict Society, for season 2. I did talk to an executive producer via Twitter, and it was almost like he was like, well, I'll see if I can find an opportunity for you. And I'm like, wait, I'm trying to help you, like, it's not like it's not like for me, it's for you. And actually, I don't know what you think about this, Richelle. I think that maybe they're scared that it's going to somehow make the product worse, that the product ultimately won't be as good. Like you said, like the director saying, oh, no, it has to be this way visually or something. I think that actually talking to people with real lived experiences like yours and mine would help them actually enrich their product with storylines that will resonate with more people.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important for these producers to remember that their viewers aren't dumb. We're all smart and we're learning, and as culture shifts, the viewers are shifting along with it, and they can handle and enjoy the truth and having things portrayed correctly. If you have a good story and good acting, then portraying someone's disability truthfully isn't going to take away from that.
Well, I'm just really glad that, for all that you're doing. I just still get choked up seeing the pictures of like the slate and the camera and that you put the badges on there, and that's so cool. You talked about this Jimmy Kimmel article, and we had someone on Instagram saying that they didn't know Jimmy Kimmel had narcolepsy. And so it's interesting too, because it sounds like the media played an interesting role in your journey, both hearing a story, but also then thinking, oh, I still couldn't, maybe have that. And when you said that thing about feeling like you need to somehow qualify that your case wasn't that bad, or, that was just really, really powerful. So I don't know, how do you feel like media is now? Do you feel like we're seeing more truthful stories, or any shift since you've been diagnosed?
I mean, it's tough because I feel like my perspective's skewed now because I'm in spaces where I am seeing truthful portrayals. But I mean, it was absolutely the case where everything I had seen from the media told me that narcolepsy looked a certain way, and that wasn't what I was experiencing. Hopefully things like this where we're discussing how different it can be, but also, what it looks for each of us will fix that. And, hopefully we start to get this out into more mainstream places where more people can see.
Mm-hmm. I don't see any other questions on the chat, just a lot of really, great comments. Someone named Chris saying that she's so interested to hear about this part of your life. Angela saying how well done this was. Irina saying, I agree that we often think of our case as not so bad, and we try to downplay it. So it's very much resonating with everybody. I loved hearing about the paragliding. So I was just curious, what was that like? And I guess it's kind of like a stereotypical question, but like, did that cause any cataplexy, or do you experience much cataplexy at this stage?
Luckily, my cataplexy is almost exclusively laughter, which is very good because if I'm mad or in a stressful situation, luckily it doesn't affect me. And I'm also on antidepressants that just also happen to suppress the cataplexy. So luckily I didn't experience anything like that, but I did get motion sick. It started off great, very exciting. We went across the valley, but then as we started to pick the hot air currents to go up, I started to feel nauseous, and it was just focusing on how beautiful it was and being ready for it to end.
Oh my gosh, that's funny because that's one of the things that I've most thought I'd love to do that. But yeah, once again, even something that looks so beautiful, there's the reality, and then there's like, what you think is happening. Wow. Oh, that's just so cool. I love your adventurous spirit, and can't wait to continue to see where your travels take you. Were you able to easily find places to nap when you were out traveling and not knowing exactly maybe where you might be on certain days?
Yeah, I was lucky, I suppose, in that the way I planned everything, it was a few days in each city, but all of the cities that I was in were very small, very walkable. So I was always pretty close to where I was staying. So even if I did an adventure up to the top of the mountain and back, it was usually a few hours and I'd be back in the early afternoon. So it was very easy for me in the afternoon to swing by the spot that I was staying and take a nap.
Oh, that's very smart. I love that idea. I went to Taiwan with my family a few years ago, and we did a bus tour. And that was excellent because we would get off the bus, go to see something, get back in the bus, drive somewhere else. So I just slept on the bus, went and did the thing, got back on the bus, slept on the bus, got back out. So it actually worked out great. There's plenty of time to nap.
Yeah, I did that as well in Egypt on a lot of napping on the bus in between spots.
Oh, wow. Cool. Oh my goodness. Well, I don't see any other questions from anybody. And so I think we'll go ahead and call it a night, and just thank you, Rochelle, for sharing tonight. This has been so, so special. We're just so grateful to have you part of this community and all you're doing, and continue to cheer for you. And thank you everyone for tuning in. This community is so special. We're just really, really grateful for everyone for being part of it. And I know your stories definitely already impacted me and Lauren. Shout out to Lauren behind the scenes training Richelle and getting her ready. And yeah, just huge thanks and big long distance hugs and gratitude. So
Yeah. Thank you so much for giving me this chance to share.
of course. All right. Well, have a good rest of the night. I'm sending you big spoons as well. I know takes a lot of spoons to do this, so we appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Good night, everybody. We'll see you again soon.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.